scheme and the massive challenge that has been. Obviously, we had the previous scheme, which was a maximum of €275,000 on a 90-10 basis, which had so many flaws in relation to its operation, and which we, after getting into government, after becoming clear what the issues were in relation to it, set about working in terms of looking to resolve that and to put in place a scheme that would properly work for people and properly address the issues that is in there. And obviously this has been a massive trauma and continues to be a massive trauma for every single family that's affected. And it's our objective to ensure that the scheme delivers for every homeowner, delivers for those who are currently underway, and also gives confidence to everyone else who will be needing it over the many years to come. It's going to take many, many years to work our way through the number of houses that's involved here, to give confidence to those people that whenever their home has been fixed, that the scheme will service them. That required new legislation which was introduced in summer of 2022, and then following on from that, new regulations which were introduced then in July of last year. Following on from that, then the County Council started the work of transitioning those who had been approved under the previous scheme and who had applied, and there was about 850 of those which Donegal County Council had previously approved under the previous 90-10 scheme. The Council over the last number of months, and the decision started to issue really from October onwards, started to transition people from the old scheme to the new scheme, giving people their updated grant awards, so that they had their grant award and could work fully under the new scheme that's in place. So far now, we've had about 300, over 300, almost 350 mark now, I believe, that the Council have given the grant awards to in relation to that new scheme. And so far now, we've had about 118 or 120 million euro of grant awards issued to families across the county in relation to those grants. And there's been about 20 million euro spent and issued and paid so far. We've seen just under 50 houses completed. A number of those have been completed under the 90-10 scheme and would have drawn down funding under that. Once the new scheme comes into play and in place, now those homes and those families are able to draw down the additional funding which they would be due under the new scheme. And then we've seen just over 70 houses which have been commenced now and are under construction and going through the process. As I say, there's about 350 in total who have their grant awards, and the Council then are working through the remainder that they have to give the new updated grant awards to them. And also, the Housing Agency is now responsible for new applicants that come in, and the Housing Agency, once the application comes in, deals with the testing and deals with all of that part of the process which previously had been dealt with which the homeowner had to shoulder up front and to reclaim costs then afterwards, which was a significant challenge and barrier at the outset. Significantly, in relation to the way the scheme will operate, the cost per square foot rates then are based on what's advised by the Chartered Surveyors of Ireland. And that can be adjusted then every year going forward based on what the cost of building is of the day. And also there's the capacity there every year as well to look at the caps that are in place within the scheme too. Obviously it has been a massive challenge to get to where it's at. We're continuing now to work to try and make sure that it moves on, that it adjusts, and any adjustments that are needed are made over that period of time as we go ahead as well. But I'm very confident now in relation to what we have in place, because we can advance this from the legislation to the regulations in terms of the detail of what is involved, and in terms of the processing of it, in terms of the staged payments, which will now be 67 payments over the course of the build, and getting it up and running. Obviously, there's the County Council are putting the infrastructure in place. There's been some challenges around that over the last few weeks. That should be there now very shortly, which will have it flowing and moving and workable in terms of homeowners being able to deal with it as it goes along and upload their documentation to it. We're now getting to the stage, and we're now at the stage, I believe, where the key impediment now to the pace that this will go forward at and will travel at will be the number of builders and the capacity of the construction sector in our county to deliver. It will no longer be the fact that the legislation isn't in place, or the regulations aren't in place, or that the structures have been put in place. It will be the capacity to get as much done as quickly as it can be. 50 at the moment have had approval. There'll be several more hundred over the course of the next number of months. And then we'll have new people applying as well. We'll have to have it done over the years ahead. And that will be the need for construction people in the county, which will decide the pace that this will travel at. And that's why I've been giving, and we all need to give a message out there across the board, that we need people to get into the sector and to actually get involved in doing this work. And indeed, there's going to be work for many years to come for people in that sector as well. So for anybody who's abroad, or when the others are coming home, there's going to be work there for that. Also, so to touch that as well on the general housing issue, obviously this is also against the backdrop of a massive housing challenge nationally, in terms of supply and demand, which we also see here in our own county, which of course is made more acute by virtue of the fact that we have the factory concrete block issue. In relation to the approach the government is taking, that is the key priority at national level in terms of looking to address that and increase supply. We've taken many different steps to try and drive that on. When this government took power, there was somewhere in the mid to high teens in terms of new houses being delivered every year. Last year that had increased to 32,000 new houses a year. And this year we want to push that on further. We can't deliver them quick enough for the level of demand that's there. But in terms of the rent challenges in place, and in terms of the needs for new houses, the answer to it all comes back to actually driving on that supply and trying to ramp it up as quickly as we possibly can. There's 3 or 4 schemes in particular the government has put in place to try and support that. In relation to some of these particularly useful, that has been taken up quite a bit here in our own county, has been the derelict home grants, whereby there's a €70,000 grant now to bring a derelict property back into circulation and to make it into a home again, and a €50,000 grant in place in cases where a property has been vacant and not as damaged and has been vacant for more than a year. Alongside that, then, there's been significant supports and schemes put in place by the government in relation to supporting people to be able to actually buy their first home and get their first home. So 2 of the key schemes that we've put in place there has been, first of all, the First Home Scheme, which is designed to try and ensure that people have given initial support, particularly around getting a deposit together, to be able to move from renting to be able to buy a property. And under that scheme, a young person or a couple can apply. It's administered through the revenue commissioners, and it's based on the tax that people have already paid over the last number of years. And under that scheme, you can apply to the revenue commissioners to get up to a maximum of €30,000 paid to you to go towards a deposit. And the only catch in relation to this is that it has to be for your first home, and that you keep it for a certain number of years then afterwards. And if you do that, you can get, and if you've been working for a few years and you've paid up to €30,000 in tax over the previous number of years, you can get that €30,000 given to you towards the deposit. So for a young person starting off who's struggling to pay rent and to get their deposit together, that means, for example, that €30,000 could be up to 10% deposit that someone would need to be able to purchase a property of €300,000, for example. The other scheme that we have put in place as well is the Help to Buy scheme, which is where people, a young person or a person on their own, or indeed a couple, are struggling to actually get a mortgage to be able to buy the house that they need, and aren't able to get the mortgage approval for that. In those instances, the government will go up to 30% shared equity, or 30% ownership in buying that house with the young person, or with a person of any age or a couple. So up to 30%, the government will take an ownership stake of 30% on the basis that whoever is buying that house can buy it back off the government at any stage into the future, or indeed not if they decide not to. And the interest rates on that 30% ownership stake that the government would take are at 0% for the first 5 years, and then 1.25% interest for the next 5 years after that. And again, that's to try and help people who are struggling to be able to actually purchase a home, and can't get a mortgage, to be able to actually purchase that as well. Alongside that, then there's significant investment going into social housing. There's been €4 million a year allocated, which is the largest budget. There's everything, and it's with the objective of delivering about 10,000 to 12,000 new social houses marches across the country per year. We've been working at a council level with their own local authority here, meeting them regularly to try and drive on the pipeline in terms of the site acquisition and to make sure that they are putting themselves into the position to draw down as much of that funding as possible to see that social funding delivered here and that social housing delivery happen in their own county. I want to move on and also just in relation to obviously in terms of mentioned just the sports capital investment with a €147,000 of a grant to Culldaff Soccer Club to help support it, and also working with Blaney have an application in this time around which will be working closely with them in order to get a successful outcome. And recently then as well as part of 6 different clubs around the county getting clear programme funding to Blaney Colts to draw down €50,000 from that as well, which Martin would have worked very closely with them in relation to. I want to touch then as well on agriculture, which obviously is the brief which I have to cover from my own point of view as Minister. Last year, we had a key focus here has been to do all we can to try and deliver funding to the farming community, which obviously here in Donegal, more so than any county in the country, is a massively important part of our economy. Last year was the first year of the new common agricultural policy. It will run for 5 years, up to 2027. In terms of delivering that new common agricultural policy, I wanted to make sure that it would be one which would be fair to our own county, which hadn't always been the case in the past, and that it would get a fair crack with it. We'll travel the county then in relation to framing that agricultural policy, but there was 2 or 3 key steps we took, which was particularly important in relation to supporting Donegal farmers. First of all, significantly moving on with the averaging of payments per hectare, because Donegal has lower payments per hectare in other parts of the country, and that's delivered a better average payment to farmers. Also then we have front-loaded payments on the first 32 hectares. And that was with the objective of benefiting small and medium-sized farmers by getting a larger payment, about €70 a hectare extra on your first 32 hectares. That means, of course, that's paid for by the fact that it's a slightly less payment for those that are over 32 hectares, but it's particularly important for smaller or medium-sized farmers. And the other key step we took as well was we reduced the maximum payment that any one farmer could get under cap from €150,000, which is the maximum that was there before, to €66,000 now. So no farmer now under cap can get any more than €66,000 compared to the $150,000 that was there before. And again, that was with the objective of spreading the funding across more farmers, and particularly benefiting those who were small and medium sized. In relation to the schemes we put in place then, within the Pillar 2 aspect of agriculture, we increased the funding for that by 50%. And through that we've delivered, for example, we've delivered €200 for a suckler cow. We've doubled the payment per ewe with additional funding in the recent budget from what had been €10 to €20 per ewe now, which will be in place this year. And also a significant increase in funding for the organic scheme, and particularly as well the acre scheme. We've got a 50% extra funding in the acre scheme, which has proved particularly popular here in Donegal, because out of the 46,000 that have applied nationally, we've had 1/9 of those applicants here in Donegal, which is over 5,000. There's been challenges around the payment system and the design and the IT system in relation to that acre scheme, which has meant that not every farmer got paid in December, whenever we hoped they would be, and indeed there continues to be challenges around it, whereby that IT system is getting delivered, and will take more time than it was intended to have. So I stepped in now and I directed that there would be an interim payment made to each farmer who's in acres before the end of this month. So for the farmers who are in the general scheme, will now get €4,000 paid to them at the end of this month, and farmers who are in the cooperation scheme, which is the majority of ones that are waiting to get paid, will get a €5,000 payment paid at the end of the month, and then that'll be netted off then whenever the full payment is made in the summertime.
A quick overview of some local issues, more so than national issues, some roads programme works and some housing works. So we'll start maybe out in Gleneely. There's 10 new houses that is going to party planning. It's actually a new 147 that is new planning that actually came on where the council would actually have to go through parties. They have land and they advertise it that they can go ahead without going through all the red tape of planning permission to build social houses. So there's 10 in Gleneely, there's 9 in Malin, and there's 25 in Fianna. So Inishore has done quite well out of that versus some other parts of the county, especially those social houses. So we hope that the tender process for both Gleneely and Malin is out. We hope to have the tenders back on at the end of March, with work starting in the early summertime on both of those two projects. The one in Culldaff will just be a wee bit later because there's a few issues in relation to the Bocan Hall that has to be sorted out first. But the Malin project and the Blaney project, the intention is to have those houses finished by summer 2025 for allocate. The roads programme we're working on at the minute for this year, and then we have to do the next 3 years. It's done on a 3-year programme. For this year, there's a number of projects that's in the pipeline to be done. There's the extension of the road to McConalogue there, as you come back in from McConalogue to New's Bridge, to finish that. There's also a section from Fáil back towards Blaney to be finished, and then there's a big section out in Carabina on that long street where all the bumps are in the road there. That section's going to be resurfaced this year. The CAS programme for this year, there's an application in again for Gleneely to extend the footpath back out to the speed limit signs in the Culldaff. That will have to be done in two sections, two separate applications, because of it's about 100,000 is the cost of doing that. But we hope to maybe be in a position that will get 50,000 this year and 50,000 to it maybe next year. That would extend the footpath out to the speed limit signs at the road, which will make that area a lot safer. There's a lot of Charlie touched on Gleneely there. There's a lot of good work going on in Gleneely, particularly with both the development group and in particular the football club. Over the last couple of years, they've done fantastic work out there, and they put a lot of effort into to have a fantastic facility out there. Hopefully when the work's all done now, with the planning and hopefully successful with a sports capital, I think people out there can be very proud of what they've done out there to turn that around and to have the facilities that they have out there. They're excellent facilities. And then back into Culldaff and the team there, I see some of them here tonight involved with the football club. Again, they're doing fantastic work there. There's work going on with the sports capital money for last year. And again, we have the facilities that they have in those two areas is second to none, and I'm sure, and I think that to be commended, particularly for that. People have seen over the last few weeks as well, there's been quite a lot of damage done to Culldaff Beach. There's serious erosion happening there, serious erosion happening all around Bocan Beach and Culldaff. We did meet with the OPW way back last year to the council. There was a report done on Lag and on Bocan Beach that really didn't give us any answers. We're hoping, we've asked Michael McDermott, Director of Service for Water and Environment, to organise a meeting with the OPW again within the next couple of weeks to discuss the erosion, particularly at Culldaff. It's been very bad, and asking them to see if there's something that we can do temporarily at least to stop as much erosion that's happening there. But it's not an easy fix. Certainly not an easy fix around the coast with erosion to get an answer. And we have so many bodies to go through between the OPW, National Parks and Wildlife. All these organisations are hell-bent on not allowing anything to happen. So we have to meet them again to see if there's something that could be done in those areas. At a council level, we're now at the minute going through the county development plan, which is a plan now that will be here for the next 8 years. A very important plan for the area, very important plan particularly for rural areas in particular. And it's one of the main aspects of the plan that we're looking at the minute is rural housing. And we're going to be I think we have to be very strong in relation to the plan. rural housing in particular. The planning regulator have made comments towards our plan. The plan was out to public consultation, went to all the state bodies, and then came back. We went through the plan again, it's going back out to public consultation within the next few weeks. But some of the commentary from the planning regulator in relation to rural housing would be what we would consider, dangers for rural housing in the future. We've made it very clear that rural housing to Donegal and rural housing to us is paramount importance that people in rural areas and families can build in their own land, and there should be no stipulations in that, bar the fact that we have to be from that area. So that is something that has been discussed and went through heavily. As I say, it's going back out to public consultation now. When it comes back in from public consultation, those state bodies and the general public will have their comments on it again, and at that point then it will have to be decided on by the council. The elements of it that we're putting into the plan, and some of the elements that we're not going to put into the plan.
We're walked it all bodies of wit and getting here. I'm sure Mark and Charlie covered an awful lot of ground, so maybe just a bit of my background as a senator in Leinster House. My role is spokesperson in Northern Ireland, and a lot of the work that I do actually is throughout Northern Ireland, and it's about rebuilding some of those relationships that we have broken since 2016, since Brexit. Things haven't worked out very well in Northern Ireland. Thankfully there's a more positive opportunity being realised now and Storm is up and running. But a lot of the work I've done is trying to ensure that those relationships are broken. From our perspective, we're back in good shape again, and meeting people from all backgrounds and life, political life, nationalist and unionist. And for me, it's critically important that we do that first and foremost from a county here that's so far out of water. And that water is really important to us here, because it's always been really, really hard to get our just awards here in Donegal. And we're sitting right beside a pretty large city on this island. So for me, those links are really, really important. And moreover, the one thing we did achieve in this island, when everybody said yes, was the Good Friday Agreement. It was a hard battle to get that to where we got it. But the one thing we need to learn is when we do sit down and agree, there's an opportunity of home somewhere in this island for the next generations. And that's what the work's about. Secondly, I'm pushing hard to be the add-on for Fianna Fáil in the forthcoming Midlands North West elections. They'll be on the same day as the council elections, the 7th of June. I think we're really poorly represented at the moment in Europe by our current 4 MEPs. We don't have anybody out there battling for us. Like I said earlier, we find it hard, and I suppose, being honest about it, when you leave the commuter belt in Dublin, and the more west you come, the more decline you have in population. So the less representation you have as well, compared to the east and the south. So it's always a battle to get what you want here. Back in the 90s, there was such a thing as boundaries and development. We were given Objective 1 status to establish that, which is about ensuring that we got our infrastructure projects here, the same as they have down south. Now, over the last couple of terms, that's fallen by the wayside. And for me, again, that's about the weak representation they have in Europe. Charlie can tell you how the agricultural cap funds has been undermined time on time. I don't hear any MEP shouting about that from our region either. And I just think we're very weak representation. I suppose where I come from with this, all my political career has been about delivering projects. And when I took over from the people that went before me, particularly my father, he was big into projects. The likes of the Motorway Bridge and the 2 car ferries, Bunch of Hopping project. When I came on board as a TD, that wasn't very far progressed. Just starting to get there. And I done the work and ensured that project was completed. So I know delivering projects, delivering them, and how hard it is to deliver these projects. And I want to be that representative in Europe. Because we need a strong voice in Europe, someone with practical representation that really has the interests of the people at heart here. Because that's not happening at the moment across the board with what we have out there. We have nobody standing up for us. We have nobody shouting the fact that we no longer have that balanced regional development. There's nobody shouting for the projects, the infrastructure projects, the road projects, the road projects. The fact we have no rail. This region has been left behind and nobody's shouting about it. We need somebody to go out there and disrupt and be strong enough and do that, but also get stuck into the detail to ensure these projects are delivered. To ensure that when we have people in Dublin, that the money is there for this part of the regions as much as it is for the other regions. Because it's fantastic to have a minister and fighting damn hard to get what we get here at the moment. And he has delivered a massive amount. We never more money spent to the county. We still have an awful lot of catch up to do. So that strong voice in Europe is really important. And it's important for our farmers as well that we do have a representative that's there to fight for the farmers. To ensure that cap funding doesn't reduce anymore and increase if possible. Because we don't have that representative for them. This part of the world dependent on the rural small farmers all in the years. It's really important to have that strong voice, and I want to be that strong voice. I'm sure Charlie and Martin covered all the issues, but feel free to ask any questions.